Nebraska put up the second highest team score this season. OU finished another season at home undefeated, and several Olympic spots were secured at the Baku World Cup. For those new here, my name is Kinsley, the host of Neutral Deductions, a podcast all about men's gymnastics.
This is the Neutral Deductions podcast, men's gymnastic news, coverage, and analysis. Hosted by Kinsley Beal.
So a few catch-ups on my end. I am so sorry I didn't put out a podcast last week, but we had several family emergencies just back to back, and there just wasn't time to put up a podcast. So thank you so much for your patience and understanding there. I also want to let you know some really good news, which is that I got a job with NBC as a statistician for the 2024 Paris Olympic Games, and I will be on site in Paris working with their team, helping them have stats and facts available for both men's and women's artistic gymnastics. Nebraska took the second highest score of the season as they defeated the number 2 Fighting Illinois. I've been telling people all season how much Nebraska gets overlooked, and they shouldn't be. They are just quietly behind the scenes doing the work, and they now have the big score to show for it. The head coach for the Illini said, "We made a few too many uncharacteristic mistakes today. Nebraska had a day, and they beat us. This loss gives us some things to learn from and grow from, and we will do better next week." From Illinois, Brandon Ding took the pommel horse title as well as Will Hawkey. He won parallel bars. The rest of the titles belong to the Cornhuskers, including Luke James on floor, Chris Heiser on rings, Taylor Christopoulos on vault, Max Auden on high bar, and Sam Phillips won the all-around with an 80.65. The Oklahoma Sooners closed out their home season in a big way, meaning that they completed another undefeated season. This team hasn't lost at home since 2007, and they took home 6 titles against Navy. No one from Navy or OU entered the all-around competition, so there was no wins or losses there. Head coach Mark Williams was honored for his 25 seasons with the Sooners. His 91.5 win percentage is higher than legendary coaches like Nick Saban and may be the highest winning percentage of all time. It's a little hard to find statistics on smaller sports like equestrian and swimming, but I'm looking into where his percentage ranks among all-time head coaches.
Neutral Deductions recently launched this year and is entirely funded by listener contributions. If you'd like to support the show and help promote men's gymnastics, kindly consider making a donation through the PayPal link provided in the show notes. All donations are greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Michigan started off strong at arch rivals Ohio State with a season high on floor. Floor has been a weaker point for Michigan all year, so even though the Wolverines trailed in the first rotation, things were looking promising. But pommel horse did the Wolverines in. Forced to count 3 falls, they were in a deficit that they were not able to get out of. Ohio State won the meet by 4.5 points on senior night, where Cam Nelson took floor and vault. Kristen Gahovsky won pommels, and Tyler Rookwood won parallel bars. Fred Wichard of Michigan won the all-around with an 84.350 and the high bar title, and Javier Alfonso rounded out the event title wins with a win on still rings. Greenville beat Simpson in another matchup, and Army barely edged Springfield but did manage to beat William & Mary by 6 points. Stanford put up their season high of 416.350 at Air Force and swept the event titles. Koyang was especially impressive with a career best 15.1 on vault and the title on parallel bars. Colt Walker looks to be returning to top form with a win on floor. J.R. Chow won pommels, Asher Hong won rings, and Brandon Nguyen took high bar. Next week will be a busy week for the NCAA athletes with all teams competing but 2. Moving into more elite news, the Baku World Cup took place this past weekend and several Olympic spots were finalized. Roo Seung-yoon of Korea has managed to secure one of the 2 floor exercise spots via points. There are 7 more athletes who can possibly get the second spot, but it's probably going to come down to Yahor Sharamakov, Benjamin Asperger, and Eddie Penev. So Eddie Penev has been the king of capitalizing on opportunities. There have been 2 event finals where he has just been outside making the floor final. He's been a reserve, and then he's ended up being entered into the competition, and he has been able to secure major points. Ahmed Abu Alsu of Jordan also secured a spot on pommel horse. Narman Kurbanov is definitely the favorite for the second spot, but there are a couple of other athletes who could end up getting that spot. Hurwoong of Korea has been a brilliant athlete, a surprise brilliant athlete to be honest, but he has been knocked out of contention even though he sits in 3rd place. And the reason that he's been knocked out is because each country gets a max of 3 spots if you don't qualify a full team. So Lee Junho got an all-around spot at the World Championships, and then as a country, Korea will also get a spot because they placed between 13 and 15 at the 2023 World Championships. And then Roo Seung-yoon has won the tiebreak for the World Cups on floor. There is no way that Hurwoong can catch Roo Seung-yoon, and so he will not be able to earn a nominative spot. Still rings and vault are wide open, though Samir At Saeed of France and Madi Olfadi of Iran are both leading those respectively. countrymen Angel Barajas and Josimar Calvo of Colombia are only 3 points apart in the standing for Colombia, and only one of them will be able to get that spot should they maintain the lead. Tong Jiahong of Taiwan has a spot for high bar, and the remaining spots are between Robert Tavoragal, Angel Barajas, and Arthur Nori of Brazil. At the Baku World Cup, there were 7 event winners because we did have a tie on pommel horse. So Yahor Sheramakov of Belarus, who's competing as a neutral athlete this cycle, won floor. There was a tie with Steven Nedrasik and Lee Chi-kai. So Steven Nedrasik competes for the United States. Lee Chi-kai competes for Taiwan. They both won with a 15.4. It was an amazing World Cup final, to be honest, because even with a 15.0, that athlete was in 5th place. Steve had a really good strategy, in my opinion. Instead of doing his full difficulty up front, he started in qualifications with a 16.3 difficulty and then moved to a 16.5 difficulty for finals. And when I was able to talk to his coach at Winter Cup earlier this year, the coach had said Steve will probably be competing a 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", or 6'8", depending on how he structures his routine. And I think it was really good for him to get that back-to-back consistency and prove that he can hit an international competition back-to-back, and by lowering his difficulty, because he absolutely is clean enough to make the final with, I say, only a 6'3". It's still a huge start value, but for him, only a 6'3". And then the other thing was there were no falls in the pommel horse final, so that was a great thing to see all the way around. Yohao of China won still rings with a 14.9. Nazar Chupirny of Ukraine won vault with a 14.9 as well. That's the average between the two vaults. Ilya Kovtun shockingly won parallel bars, even though he's been very strong in the World Cup competition thus far. Zhou Jingyuan of China, who's largely considered to be the greatest parallel bar worker of all time, ended up falling. Now, just to put this in perspective, with a fall, Zhou Jingyuan still had an 8-1 E-score and tied Ilya Kovtun for the title, but ended up losing out because of the E-score tiebreak. So if Zhou Jingyuan hits, he absolutely wins. He's going to win every time. However, he didn't hit this time, and Ilya Kovtun was able to capitalize on that. Robert Tavoragal won high bar with a 14.333, and this was a really, really tight final. So Robert Tavoragal, Arthur Nori, and Angel Barajas all scored a 14.333. But with the tiebreak, Robert Tavoragal was able to stand on top of that podium.
Neutral Deductions is your exclusive gymnastics news platform focused entirely on men's gymnastics. To show your support, please subscribe to Neutral Deductions' YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram.
The final competition in the 4-part World Cup series will be the Doha final, and there's quite a long wait. We won't actually see the athletes compete until the end of April. It's April 17th through 20th, and at the end of that competition, the rest of the Olympic spots will be named from the World Cup series. The British have already started their competition series looking at leading up to the Olympic Games. So a few weeks ago, they had the English Championships. So for those unfamiliar with how those in Great Britain compete, they have English Championships, Welsh Championships, British Championships, and several others along the way, because it's a country made up of countries. And so at the English Championships, Joe Fraser won the all-around by over 2 points ahead of James Hall and Jake Jarman, who placed second and third respectively. The British Championships is this coming weekend, March 14th through 17th, and live scoring and live streams will be available, and we will have those posted on our website at neutraldeductions.com. Both the British and the English Championships are part of the British Olympic selection procedures, and I will be going into exactly what the British Olympic selection procedures are at a later date. This coming weekend will also be host to the DTB Call Cup and Mixed Team Cup, which are happening March 15th through 17th in Stuttgart, Germany. This event will be live streamed. Again, we will have those links on our website. There is a men's team final, a junior team final, and a mixed team cup with both the men and the women. So Australia, Belgium, China, Germany, France, Israel, Italy, Japan, Canada, Switzerland, Spain, USA, and Uzbekistan will be competing on Friday, March 15th. The US, Germany, China, Japan, Italy, and Switzerland will compete in the second subdivision, which starts at 6:45 p.m. local time, which is 1:45 p.m. Eastern and 10:45 p.m. Pacific. Remember, because the US just went through their leap forward this past Sunday. We have received another 5-star review. This one is from NV Blair 13, and they say informative and concise. This podcast is well thought out with informative and knowledgeable explanations of scoring, selection procedures, and strategy. I highly recommend it to any fan of men's gymnastics. So thank you so much for that review. If you're listening, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. It really helps others find Neutral Deductions and learn more about men's gymnastics. If you would like to help bring more live men's gymnastics coverage, please consider donating. We are entirely listener supported at this point, and even $10 helps us cover a meal. So if you are able and willing to help bring this coverage to life, the PayPal link is in every single show note and at the bottom of every article on neutraldeductions.com. You can also donate via PayPal or Stripe. If you have any questions, comments, or insider tips, you can email Kinsley at neutraldeductions@gmail.com. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.